Hey everybody, hope you guys are doing good and ready for a chapel video from me, Beau Ouellette, out in Tucson, Arizona. And I'm excited about getting in this particular scripture, this area. It's a really cool story. And I hate to say story because it's like an event. I mean, it's like something in history that's taken place. So you hate to just kind of short sell it by saying story. That sounds very fairy tale like. But there's nothing fairy tale about this event. Now, this is found in the book of Luke 7:36 through 50. Not that you need to know that, but if you did want to look it up on your own, it's in the book of Luke in the New Testament, and it is chapter 7. And we're going to start at verse 36. It's a famous story. Not that famous, but pretty famous. But there's some cool stuff here. And you kind of get a sense of the kind of Jesus style, if you will. Like kind of the way he did things. And how it really convicted a lot of people and made them go, whoa, God, look within and go, hey, how am I doing? So let's get a little bit of a taste of this event in the life of Jesus and just kind of get going. So it says, one of the Pharisees asked Jesus to have dinner with him. So Jesus went to his home and sat down to eat. Now the Pharisees were a Jewish religious sect, but they also had, in a sense, their own religious government within the country of Israel. Even today, you have in Israel, you have secular Jews, meaning they're Jews by ethnicity, but they're not really holding to the Jewish religion. So that dominates most of Israel today. So when you go to Israel today, you're not going to experience a lot of the people being very religious. They will be just kind of what we call secular. They just in a sense go, yeah, I'm not that I'm against it, but I'm just not too into it. Now, you might be from an area that's very much like that when it comes to Catholicism or the Methodist Church or the Episcopalian Church, or I grew up around it, but I'm gonna, that kind of thing. The Pharisees were different. They were the hardcore Jewish religious sect in the days of Jesus. They really, really knew their Bible, and they really, really were into, if you will, being a patriot in the land of Israel. So one of these Pharisees asked Jesus to have dinner with him. Jesus was a famous rabbi at this time, meaning he was a teacher, and he was going all over the place teaching. So it was quite the status, kind of a good reputation thing to invite the rabbi into your home. Hey, rabbi, come into my house. And man, everybody, it's going to impress everybody. Hey, he's got the rabbi at his house. That kind of idea. And you get the idea that we're like that. We tend to like status, right? We tend to be people that really thrive, with kind of the higher ups in the world. Hey, I got this person coming to my house. Well, who is he? Well, he's this guy, or he's that girl, or he's the more popular. We start this really young, by the way. We start this when we're kids growing up, where we kind of figure out, hey, the popular people are the ones you kind of want to be around. And, you kind of, hey, if you're friends with the popular person, then man, you're really in that kind of idea. So you see what's going on. The Pharisee invites the rabbi in. And it says, when a certain immoral woman from the city heard that Jesus was eating there, he brought a beautiful alabaster jar filled with expensive perfume. So check this out. A immoral woman hears that Jesus is at the home of this religious leader. Now, what kind of immorality was she participating in? Where we kind of get an idea when you read the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. When you read those books, and we're in the book of Luke right now, so Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, we're in Luke, you get the idea that there's some women that when they're talked about as being immoral, we're talking about prostitutes, women that are sleeping around kind of thing. So this woman has a heavy heart. She hears that the rabbi is down the road. And she goes, man, okay. She's got this alabaster jar, which was this certain specific material, alabaster. And from what I've read, it's an Egyptian kind of from Egypt, where a lot of women in the Middle East would wear them years and years ago. We're talking 2,000 years ago here, where they would wear these alabaster jars, very small, and there would be an expensive perfume that was in them, and they would dab it on them. And it would make them, of course, smell good. Now, in the day where hygiene wasn't like our world, where you just jumped in the shower, it was important to be able to smell good. And so these women in Israel, all women practically, would have these kind of jars. Now, these things were not cheap. They were expensive. It took a year's wage to actually buy an alabaster jar that had ointment in it, had perfume in it. So things weren't cheap back then, and it really was something that you worked hard for, and it probably, in a sense, was a kind of a way of status in itself. This is what I got. I've worked hard for this. Well, she has this alabaster jar filled with expensive perfume and a year's wage worth. And it says, then she knelt behind him at his feet, weeping. So she comes into the home of the religious leader. And a lot of times they had an open, area where, people would see the rabbi at your house. Oh, they're on the porch and they're da-da-da-da. Well, she just goes right in. She's weeping. And what does she do? It says, her tears fell on his feet and she wiped them off with her hair. Then she kept kissing his feet and putting perfume on them. This would be quite a abrupt break in the flow of your dinner party with Jesus. You're having a backyard barbecue. Everything's going great. Man, everything seems to be happening. And then all of a sudden, someone's wailing, crying uncontrollably. And they're at the guest's feet. Tears just on his feet. He's wearing sandals, and then she wipes those feet with her hair. And it would have been quite a scene. It would have definitely interrupted everything. And yet she goes for it. Where Jesus is, man, she needs to go there. She's not going to let anything kind of get in her way. Reputation, what people are going to think of her, anything like that. She's going to go and deal with what she needs to deal with. She's brokenhearted. She has lived a life that's, there's some things there. And she needs to deal with her heart before God. The first lesson I get is that, it's beautiful that she's an example to us of going to Jesus directly and asking Jesus to deal with your heart. Hey, that is beautiful that she doesn't kind of let anybody get in the way of that. Meaning, I'm sure there was a reluctancy in her maybe, and maybe other people were like, what are you doing? But she did it. She said, this is the right thing. I need to see the rabbi. I need to go and get my heart dealt with. And she went to the right person. She went to the one who could remedy her broken heart. So she knew. She had a lot of wisdom. She knew the person who could remedy the issues that were deep within her. And we all got issues that are deep within us. Things we need: forgiveness, love, care, confidence, everything like that. And sometimes we need to go to the right person to get that. I know if I go to God and I have confidence in God, if I understand how much God loves me, then it develops a confidence in me that I'm going to be okay. If I go to God and I know I'm not alone because He is always with me, then it's going to deal with my loneliness, right? I'm not going to feel so lonely and so needy and needing to grab at everybody and needing to suck the life out of them. Why? Because I am filled with God. That kind of idea. She knew where to go. Now let's go on in the story. Let's see how the Pharisee acts. It says, when the Pharisee who invited him saw this, he said to himself, if this man were a prophet, he would know what kind of woman is touching him. She's a sinner. Ugh. I mean, this chick's a you know what. And if he really were a prophet, he would know that she's just, man, unclean. Stay away. Do you see the status issue there? Of like, oh man, she's over there on Hollywood and Vine, those streets, she's that girl, it's like, I don't want her to be around me. No, kind of thing. And Jesus picks up on the Pharisee, the religious guy's prejudice. See, sometimes we can be prejudiced, not just towards color of skin, but we can be prejudiced towards economic class as well. Things like that. Or, what people have done. We could have a disdain towards them, like a hatred towards people. Like, what did you do? Oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that. And Jesus picks up that the Pharisee is acting like this. So Jesus answered his thoughts. Jesus knows what he's thinking. It's another good point in the event. And that Jesus knows what's in our mind. He knows what Simon's thinking. He knows what's in my mind. I shouldn't need to hide anything from God because things are known. You can just go to God and just lay it out. Just say, hey, I lied here. I cheated there. I did this here. You saw what I did there. And hey, I bring it before you. I confess, because it's already there, right? There's nothing hidden from the deity. I mean, that's ridiculous, that kind of thinking. God, it's not like you can hide it from God, though as human beings are constantly hiding from God, constantly not wanting any kind of accountability with God. That kind of idea. We're always running. Have you ever met someone who's just running and running and running and just will not deal with what they need to deal with? Boy, that sounds like us humans for sure. So Jesus answered his thoughts and said, Simon, he said to the Pharisee, I have something to say to you. This is going to be cool. It says, go ahead, teacher, Simon replied. And then Jesus told him a story. A man loaned money to two people. 500 pieces of silver to one and 50 pieces to the other. But neither of them could repay him, so he kindly forgave them both, canceling their debts. Who do you suppose loved him more after that? Simon answered, I suppose the one for whom he canceled the larger debt. So you get the idea. Two people owed money. One 50 pieces of silver, one 500. They both were forgiven. And the question is who do you suppose loved him more after that, after they were relieved of the debt? And the answer, of course, is that I suppose the one whom he canceled the larger debt. And so Jesus says that's right. He turned to the woman and said to Simon, Look at this woman kneeling here. When I entered your home, you didn't offer me water to wash the dust from my feet, but she has washed them with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You didn't greet me with a kiss, but from the time I first came in to your home, she has not stopped kissing my feet. You neglected the courtesy of olive oil to anoint my head, but she has anointed my feet with rare perfume. Now you get the idea that Jesus wasn't even given a honor invite, meaning an honor place at the gathering. Though the Pharisees super stoked to have, Jesus there. I mean, he is a famous rabbi at the moment, but, he doesn't really honor him in a way that really is like, man, I'm really for you. You get the idea that the religious leader has him there just to kind of prop himself up, but not really to honor Jesus in the way that, in a sense, people of like kingship would be honored with oil. Oil was not a medicinal thing back in the day, but it also smelled cool and it make your face shine, and it was, kind of a neat thing. And so they used it a lot in like the anointing of a king or of a priest, putting it on over someone's head. It was a sign of blessing, and so he didn't even offer him the blessing, like a blessing, like with this oil. But he says, man, this woman's done it. This woman's done everything. She's honored me in every way possible with what she had. She honored. It's a cool thing. Do you honor, and do I honor God with what I have? Or am I kind of neglectful of God? And it's about me. Like, I got to have a bigger house. I got to have a bigger car. I got to have a better motorcycle. I got to have a bigger skateboard. Better skis. I got a ton of skis. I got to have better surfboard. Better this, better. Everything's about me, and I'm not thinking about God. Do I honor God with my stuff? Am I thankful for what I have? That's how I can honor God, is just by being thankful too. And also by helping other people. Maybe someone doesn't have a skateboard. And I don't know, I tend to be that guy who goes like, hey, meet a kid. Oh man, you need a surfboard. The other day there was a hockey game where someone in our church came up to me and said, dude, I was almost crying. It was before a game. I forget what teams it was in the NHL. And a goalie before the game went to the glass, and there was like a 12-year-old kid there. And the goalie ended up giving the kid his goalie stick. And the kid started crying, like profusely crying, and hugged his mom with that hockey stick there. I mean, my friend said at church that he was in tears, when he saw it. Man, wow. I mean, sometimes when we just do those small things, man, and that's not a small thing, that's a big thing, right? To give away an expensive stick like that, your stick, I mean, that's a major thing. It's not a cheap thing at all. But boy, I'm not saying give away every stick you have, but boy, it's neat to know that, at times in our life where we go, man, how can I give? How can I honor God, in the right way? That kind of idea. Thinking about God, and God has blessed me so much. How can I bless other people? Okay, so it says, now Jesus gets to finally the end, and he says, I tell you her sins, which are many. Oh man, she got a lot of them. She's kind of that kind of girl. And it says, have been forgiven. Isn't that amazing? She didn't say a magic formula. She didn't say a certain prayer. She didn't say, some little thing. She literally just wanted to be close to Jesus and bring her heart before the Lord. Bring that broken heart, knowing, man, that she's just not doing the right stuff. And she brings that to God. And boy, what does Jesus say? Man, she is forgiven. The Bible teaches that no one can really forgive sins other than God. That all sin, all of our disobedience, is a disobedience against God ultimately. Even though we might sin against people, ultimately our sin is before God. And so God is the one who we need forgiveness from. And so she goes to the right source to receive forgiveness. She goes to God. And Jesus says, you got it. You know, it's beautiful to know that when you and I go to God, you know, with an honest heart, that there's forgiveness there. That you can be met with that beautiful grace and mercy that is extended from God to us. I mean, you don't have to say some magic words. You don't have to go and do some magic thing. You don't have to do anything that's like, you know, some kind of ritual to get that forgiveness. Notice she receives it just as she comes to the Lord, as she comes to Jesus and just bows before him and says, man, I am a mess. And Jesus says, hey, her sins, which are many, are forgiven. She has shown me much love. Now he says, but a person who is forgiven little shows only little love. Now this is big. If you're forgiven little, you tend to show little love. But if you know how much you're forgiven, you know just how much you've done wrong, and then you realize how much God has forgiven you, then you tend to start loving a lot. And that's what he says. A person who is forgiven little shows only a little bit of love. You might see the Pharisee was looking at that woman and saying, oh man, she's a mess. She's bad. She's sinned so great. She's such a sinner, so bad. She's heard the depth of her sin is insane. And Jesus says, yeah, she's sinned a lot. But she has been forgiven a lot. And she knows she's been forgiven a lot. And therefore she loves much. She got much love because she knows how much she's been forgiven. Meaning when you and I know how much we've been forgiven, then it really makes us want to extend love and grace to other people. But the Pharisee, who was this religious person, very strict, very by the book, he didn't realize how much he needed forgiveness. And so he loved little. He couldn't see that what the girl was doing was a good thing. He was so filled with prejudice and self-righteousness that he couldn't see that her going to Jesus and confessing her yuck to him was a good thing. That was a necessary thing for healing in her life. And because he didn't realize how much he needed forgiveness, he thought he was okay, that he just loved little. He couldn't see, even though it was right there. It was right there. The beautiful healing of that woman was right in front of his face. He couldn't see it because his heart was filled with a bunch of junk himself. But he didn't want to look at it. He was filled with pride. He was filled with arrogance. He was filled with self-righteousness. He was filled with all this stuff. And yet he couldn't even see it. He needed to be forgiven just as much as her. Isn't it weird how someone could be sinning in a prostitution way and we go, oh yeah, they're sinners. But we don't realize that we too have all kinds of stuff that we need to be forgiven for as well. Think of how many wars have been fought and how many millions of people have been killed by the arrogance of human beings, by the pride of human beings, by the self-righteousness of human beings. A lot of people have died at the hands of powerful people who felt they were right but did not see their own arrogance and pride and self-righteousness. And so Jesus says, for the one who is forgiven little shows only a little love. See, you need to recognize that you've been forgiven a lot in order to love a lot. It's like when you start thinking of your spouse and you start going like, oh, I'm better than her. If she only knew how much I did. Oh my God, why doesn't she? And you start getting into this self-righteous attitude where you think somehow you're greater or better, when you don't realize that you too are, need forgiveness just like she does. You need mercy just like she does. I think you're getting the point, right? And so the men at the table said among themselves, who is this rabbi that he goes around forgiving sins? Why? Because only God forgives sin, ultimately. And what does Jesus say? Your sins are many, but you are forgiven. See, Jesus is God in human flesh, what we call the Messiah. He is the offended party. God created us. We are his. And yet we rebel from God. He is the offended party in our sin. We are to come to him. The prostitute got that right. The Pharisee, the religious person, didn't. And it says, and Jesus said to the woman, your faith has saved you. Go in peace. See, her faith moved her to go to Jesus. If you have faith, you are going to move to Jesus. You're going to want to trust him. You're going to want to go to him. Why? Because he's the bridge. He's the one who can bridge the gap between a holy God, a holy deity, and us that is a mess. We need a bridge. And she knew that Jesus is the one to go to. That's how faith moves. When we trust, faith is trust with reason. When we recognize that, this rabbi, he is the one who I need to go to. Not this religious person over there. The religious person I can see has a lot of flaws, but Jesus, no flaws. And she goes to Jesus. In our day, many religious people have flaws. I have flaws. You have flaws. Every religious person has flaws. And that's why the Bible insists for us to go boldly to God. Go to God. Directly. In your prayer, you can go directly to God and talk to him. He is the one who can remedy our hearts. And hopefully what we want in our life is we want to realize how much we've been forgiven so that we can love other people properly, so that we can see what's before our eyes. We can see clearly when people are doing the right thing. Yeah. Okay. So, very cool, right? Luke 7:36-50. I hope you got a bunch out of that chapel. That is a really cool event in the life of Jesus. And one that, boy, it ruffled some feathers for sure. And if it's one that makes you go, wow, that's really trippy, read it again and think through it a little more. You can go to God, and you can go straight to him, and you can talk to him and be honest with him. And let him deal with your heart. Let him deal with mine, so that we can have a good conscience, kind of a free feeling, knowing that God, the weight of that burden that we're carrying can be lifted. Boy, good stuff. Okay. Hope to see you guys soon, okay? Take care. Bye-bye.